What is up, everyone, and welcome back to Nothing But Professional. My name is Jacob Terrell, and I'm your host for today's show. And as always, I am here every single Wednesday and Friday at 12:30 Mountain Standard Time to make sure to catch all my content and all my newest videos, which we have one coming out this Saturday. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell to make sure you don't miss anything. Also, if you want the best way to keep in touch with me and keep up with what I am doing, make sure to follow all my social medias. Usernames right below and links in the description below as well. With all that being said, let's jump right into the video. Today we have a very, again, special guest who was on the show a few weeks ago, Cameron Richardson. He is the host and creator of The Rich Report, who is now starting their YouTube channel. I will also put a link in the description once after this stream is officially done, so you guys can go check him out. He's done a bunch of different videos, and they're really going to start moving this summer, so make sure to check them out as well. With all that being said, please welcome Cameron Richardson. Hey, buddy, how you doing this morning? Cameron, can you hear me? Cameron. Here, give me 1 second. Can you hear me? Here, give me 1 second, guys. Here, we're gonna figure this out. Give me 1 second.
From the NFL draft and all that. Had a long project to do last night for a podcasting class, so there's that too. So just surviving right now. I have to look at the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb falling into their lap was just a blessing for them. Getting with the additions already with Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, getting a CeeDee Lamb just totally stacks this offense. And I think they probably have the best offensive core in all the NFL with Prescott. You got a top 3 running back in the NFL in Ezekiel Elliott, and you add on Gallup, Blake Jarwin, Amari Cooper, and now CeeDee Lamb, and they're stacked now.
Yeah.
Cardinals. Yeah.
Good.
I was gonna say the Cardinals. I mean, it's every single pick just fell right into their lap. Isaiah Simmons really just fell right into their lap, and then Benjamin falling all the way to the final round just really didn't make sense to me. And the Cardinals just say, "Hey, he's the best player available that's left in the draft, so we're gonna go and take him." I think players that just fell right into their lap, but the Josh Jones pick was just insane because there's no way I had him falling that low. And the Cardinals are now set up to where they have a ton of pieces they can build around for the future.
I would agree. I would say at number 5, I have the Bengals, which might be a surprise to some people because I agree. Getting Joe Burrow is definitely one of their best picks, and arguably one of the best picks in the draft. He also was the number 1 pick, which is no surprise. But to me, I just feel like they also did a really good job. They filled a wide receiver spot with T. Higgins, which I wish went to the Packers, but we'll discuss losers in this draft a little bit later. They filled up the defense a little bit as well. They picked up 3 linebackers and 1 defense end, and they also picked up a player to protect Burrow at that offensive line. Were they the best options? Not entirely. T. Higgins is still a good receiver, someone to line up on the other side of AJ Green. But other than Burrow, I was not too perfectly fond with every other decision they made. I still think they did a good draft. They had a good team, and they're on the right direction. I think they still had some more holes to fill, but we'll see in reality if Burrow can really take this Cincinnati team far into the playoffs, maybe a playoff appearance, or just improve them a little bit over the years, which is something they really have needed to do. At number 4, I'm going to have the Dallas Cowboys. I wasn't in love with their first pick, but I didn't hate it. I think they probably could have picked up AJ McKinney from, I believe he's from Alabama, correct? He's from, the safety from outside of Alabama. But I was not disappointed with CeeDee Lamb, who, even though they already had 2,000-yard receivers, 2 1,000-yard receivers, they still picked up a third weapon, giving Mike McCarthy another person to really work with in general, which I think was super special for them. They definitely improved their offense, but they also, the second round, did pick up a cornerback in Stephon Diggs' brother, Trayvon Diggs, which is still improving that defensive backfield, which is something I think they really needed to do without question, because that was their biggest struggles last year. So I wasn't too fond, but I loved their first pick. It was kind of a love-hate. It was more of just see how this is going to play out. At number 3, I have the Arizona Cardinals. As what you said, people were just falling in their laps. I don't think people were talking enough about them, how good they really did. Their offseason in general, getting DeAndre Hopkins was super special. They arguably, to me, got a top 2 player in the NFL draft when it comes to physical ability and versatility. Isaiah Simmons is a linebacker, a safety, a corner. Whatever you really want him to be, he's going to be able to play, and you are going to be able to use him in so many different ways that I think it's really special that they got a player like this. And the Arizona Cardinals, a team who, for a long time in Arizona, in general, the Arizona sports do not always pick up the greatest moves, and they kind of seem like they are falling down. This is the first time in a while I'm really seeing some moves from the Cardinals that are going to put them in Super Bowl contention, and I think it's important to realize that this is going to be huge for this state of Arizona, somewhere where I grew up, you grew up, or you grew up in California, but like somewhere I grew up, and we have not really had those championship teams, so it's good to see someone finally making moves like that. At number 2, I have the Minnesota Vikings. They added Justin Jefferson, a big body who's really going to be interesting to see how he lines up on the opposite side of their other slot receiver, Thielen. They also replaced every one of their defensive backs, and losing Xavier Rhodes was a big hit for them, but they did find ways to replace him. At number 1, I have the best team, without question. Improved their defense with no question in Patrick Queen. We have the Baltimore Ravens. They also got a steal in the second round with J.K. Dobbins, who I don't think was a very big necessity, but someone they can really use out in that offense to be versatile and maybe give Mark Ingram some rest and maybe run more of a 2-back system because they really more focused on Mark Ingram this year, which in reality is, I think, a good option for both of them. What do you say, Cameron?
Oh yeah, I mean, how teams just let the Ravens fall with, I think, could be three potential elite defensive players in Patrick Queen, Justin Matabuki, and Malik Harrison of Ohio State. Malik Harrison fell way late in this draft, and he's just sitting there for the Ravens, and the Ravens say, hey, let's continue just to stack on defense, because now they know their offense in the postseason, especially with Lamar Jackson now being 0-2, not so sure about how that's going to go anymore. So now they're saying, hey, instead of us being able to score points, let's go and make sure we don't allow any, so that Lamar Jackson at least has a chance to win a game.
I agree. And I think, I don't know, I believe just in reality, one of the best teams in the NFL just got so much better with what they did in the draft picks. And I think the Baltimore Ravens, those small holes that they really needed to fill, which really there wasn't a lot of them, but they really did a good job in the offseason picking up Calais Campbell and making that defensive line even better. They got a new running back to help Mark Ingram, and they're moving up because they got a receiver as well. It's going to be interesting to see what Lamar Jackson can do with some of these new weapons and the new way the team's going as they keep growing. But at your top 5 worst teams, who are you going to say were some of the biggest losers in this year's draft?
I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, but I'm sorry. I don't like the Dolphins' risk on taking Tua Tagovailoa. I've said it from the beginning. I don't like that his hip has been just practically exploded less than a year ago. he's had some games where his mentality is really just, it's felt like he's quit in the games, especially when we look at the 2018 postseason where Jalen Hurts had to bring them back against Georgia in the SEC title game, and then you look at the national title game, he gives up the pick six to AJ Terrell out of Clemson, and the game was practically over from there. So I think it's a little bit of mental questions, and it's is that hip really gonna sustain itself after taking, 2 or 3 big hits? And then
Uh, yeah, go ahead,
another
go ahead.
loser I have of course, are the Packers. I hate the Jordan Love pick. I wasn't big on Jordan Love at all coming out of Utah State. Yes, he had lost everything. There was a lot of injuries on that Utah State team, but still nothing really jumped off the map. He just comes off as another Brent Hundley, but with a better arm.
I agree. I can't, as a Packer fan in general, they are definitely my worst draft class by far. They feel like the only team in the entire draft that didn't get better with this draft at all. They pretty much did not pick up a single starter. Their first 4 picks pretty much will not see the field for maybe a year or two. You have Jordan Love, which is beyond questionable, but it was found out they were determined to get him, which I was not really understanding why, because you have Aaron Rodgers who wants to be a Packer. You're seeing quarterbacks move to 43, 44 playing in the NFL at a decently high level, and you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now who still did not have the greatest season last year, but let's not forget the fact that Matt LaFleur, I think's coaching ability is coming into question a lot by a lot of people right now, and I think Matt Gutekunst, our GM, is someone they are also kind of on the hot seat. This is going to be a determination if these guys are going to be here in the next couple of years or not, is based off of this draft. Because when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's still probably going to play at least 4 more years before his contract is up, you don't make any other Super Bowls because you decided not to improve the team in ways to win now, it is really going to question their ability to coach, because you have a team who can win now, and by not improving them to still win now, and only looking for the future, you're really not putting yourself in the best spot to keep your job later on. But some other teams, I would agree, who did not have the best draft pick. I'm not too fond of the Texans. They didn't pick enough linemen up, personally, in my opinion, who have always struggled offensively when it came to protecting Deshaun Watson. They did not pick up enough guys to help him out. You're also, in the offseason, you did not do enough to pick up other receivers to replace DeAndre Hopkins when you had a good, versatile receiver class as well. At number 4, I have the LA Chargers. Outside of Herbert and Murray, their needs were really questionable in which they decided to take, and it was just one of those things where I don't feel like they fixed enough problems in general for the rest of their team. At number 3, I have the Eagles. I'm not a big fan on the Jalen Hurts pick, unless the only one I would agree with is because of Wentz's injury history. If that comes to a point, then I can see them letting Wentz go. But until that situation comes, I don't see I don't see Hurts coming in right away. At number 2, I have the Bears, who picked up another tight end. 95% of the players on their team, I'm pretty sure, are tight ends right now. They have it. They have enough tight ends to where I'm pretty sure they could almost start an entire side of the ball in purely just tight ends, which
Oh yeah.
is not something you want. You don't want 45 tight ends on your team. It just doesn't make sense to me. But other than that, I do have Packers at my worst team in the draft. What can you say to that, Cameron?
Another team I didn't like were the Patriots. I just think they're just still, they want to take the same mindset every draft now, when they should realize that this is a new era that they're about to start without Tom Brady and Gronk. They're there's sort of no direction right now because they don't have a quarterback. Their quarterback right now it's either Jared Stidham or Brian Hoyer right now, and that's really, after this incredible dynasty, you're just gonna phone it in now and say, we're we can lose, if we have 5, 6, 7, even more losing seasons in a row before we get something started again. Is that really the path the New England's about to head down, or are they planning for something bigger down the road this offseason?
I would agree. So jumping over into our next topic, we have the UFC. I want to let Cameron take a little bit on this because this is something he really wanted to talk about as well as I do. He just knows a little bit more when it comes to the insiders of what's going on. So Cameron, go ahead, take it away, my brother.
Well, first off, when it comes to mixed martial arts or in any combat sports, especially during a time like this, what are they doing most of the time? They're all over each other. They're exchanging bodily fluids, blood, sweat, tears, and Dana White says, you know what? No, just throw them in there. We're fine. We'll get all the proper procedures going. Well, that's all great and all, but remember, there's still that little period with this virus that you don't know if someone has the symptoms or not. So you're risking not only the fighters who are fighting, you're risking the cornermen and medical personnel who should be doing other things like treating patients instead of having to go to a sporting event to have to take care of these fighters. And another thing is when they're cutting weight, that also is compromising their immune system. So there's that as well. They're exposed to it more after they're fighting and after they're done weight cutting. And all this just encompasses my thoughts on having live sports in general during this time, and especially without fans. There's just an element of having fans that makes sports all the much better, because I don't really want to see an NHL season restart with playoffs or an NBA season restart without playoffs. So we're not going to do it in home arenas with fans. Look, I know from a financial standpoint, it makes no sense and they probably can't do it. But man, if it does happen and we do end up getting some of these events, we get a Stanley Cup playoffs and NBA finals without fans, I can't really see how we can accept those teams that win those championships as, the proper winners, because to me, it just doesn't feel right.
I would agree. I mean, I always remembered back in high school when I was playing, there was such a different atmosphere of playing like a scrimmage when there's no one around watching. And there's pretty much, even though you'd be televised, there is still at the end of the day, the scrimmage there, it's just quiet. That's not how it is like in a gym. But then when you'd go on and play inside home arenas, when we played at home back where I went to high school, the crowds were always loud and it made that type of atmosphere to really get you excited and happy, and it felt normal. If I could play a game in a small town gym with like no other fans around, it really isn't the same exact feeling as playing in front of a bunch of fans. So when you're going into the situation like that, I would agree, you can't have sporting events without fans. It's one of the biggest things that makes sports so interesting is people's fan base. So I'd agree with you on that one. Jumping over to our last topic of the day, as we have been talking about on the show for like I think 2 weeks now, we're going to react a little bit to Michael Jordan's documentary, The Last Dance. First off, before we get into this, I've talked about this before, I want to hear your take. What are your takes on the first 2 episodes, kind of your start, just like a quick overview of what you thought, and then we'll jump into the 3 and 4.
The craziest takeaway for me was Scottie Pippen's contract. I mean, you always knew Jordan was the guy, but I think you sort of look back and go, wow, players really were all about the team. They cared about winning up until it was, oh, I'm injured now. Oh, you want to keep Jordan again? You're not going to pay me? All right, then, forget you. I'm out of here. I mean, that's 6 year. Well, it was 6 years, 17 million, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was 6 year 18. But
18?
It doesn't make the difference for the money wise.
No. Yeah, I mean, at the time, the guy was a top 10, top 15 player in the entire league. I mean, that's like what would be a fair comparison right now? Like a Klay Thompson-esque player only getting 6 years and $3 million each year. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, and also another thing that I started to notice just from 90s, just in sports, is really, you look at how, I've had some discussions on how bad MLB's marketing is when it comes to just promoting their players. If you go and you look at a Barry Bonds or a Ken Griffey Jr., their stats in the 90s, and if the MLB had the same type of marketing that the NBA did, they would be on the same level as Jordan. I mean, when you go and look at Ken Griffey Jr.'s and Barry Bonds' numbers, there's no reason why they shouldn't be on that same level as Michael Jordan was, because I didn't know about Barry Bonds' Pittsburgh Pirates days until my dad had to tell me about it. Nobody, I watch ESPN every day, and never do I see Bonds and his Pirates days come up. And with Ken Griffey, I only knew him from a kid because he was still on the Reds. I didn't know. It took me a while to figure out he was a Mariner and a legend on the Mariners. So it goes to show just not only how great NBA's marketing strategies were with Jordan and how Jordan was really the first big, really just marketing icon, just crossing over everywhere, but also how poor other sports can be during that exact same time, and even today, because even if Mike Trout was walking down the street, you wouldn't recognize who he was.
Mm-hmm. My biggest takeaway too is with the fact that it wasn't the fact that just Jordan in their marketing was good. It was also the fact that their marketing was good outside of the country. And the big one for that with Jordan was the 1992 Olympics. Even before that, when he was, I believe, in 1980. No, it was 1986 when he got drafted. No, that's when Scotty. It was like
80, it was
no,
84.
yeah, 84 is when the he first went to the Olympics. That was kind of the first time he went and got big name. But that 1992, where the Dream Team came, it was the best basketball group essentials that anyone's ever seen, and that's what really blew up Jordan, and he made his icon from the best player in the NBA to no question the best player in the world, because other people from around the world really got to see who he was. And I think it was kind of his like timestamp, and that's what really helped him grow countrywide and became the icon of the NBA. But jumping into our episode 3 and 4, what do you have to say? I fell in love with Phil Jackson. And I fell a little bit in love with Dennis Rodman. It makes you understand Rodman a little more, but I never was really in tune with who Phil Jackson was. But watching the 4th episode and finding out his stories, that he coached a game where the mayor of the town in another country shot an official because he didn't like the call. Like, that's the type of coaching he was in at the very beginning. It made you realize that he can really take players of all calibers and understand the little things about each one of them and how he can grow a team and keep that type of group in tune to win as much as they did is just incredible. I have no words and nothing but respect for Phil Jackson after watching that 4th one.
Yeah, I was never a big fan of the triangle. It's just a little bit too, stale for me, a little bit too slow. I like to keep the players moving, not just the ball. But I mean, it got him 11 championships, so you can't really take that away from him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Dennis Rodman. I mean, there's not, when I look at just play style, there's not really one I idolized more when I was playing, because I was never the best shooter, the best scorer. I was always defense and get your rebounds, and I did my job. So just seeing that and seeing how big it was then, and see how defense is practically out of the game for the most part, is, it's sad. You sort of hate it that guys like Rodman, if Rodman was in the league now, he would have just been known as like a bully, a guy that just likes to start fights and stuff, and not really just the enforcer he was defensively and how great his rebounding is. That's really, rebounding is practically not a stat anymore, because nobody really cares. It's just, hey, shoot the 3 and then get back on defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see now.
And that's just like a kind of, you don't really have that defensive rebounding player anymore. I mean, I guess you could argue maybe Draymond Green is somewhat one of those type of players, but he's not. I hear
Draymond Green a lot, but I also throw in a Marcus Smart. Really, I think is probably the closest we have to that Dennis Rodman type of attitude,
which is still someone who's not completely a Rodman type player, someone who just did not care what was going on, what was happening. And I don't know, when you really watched Rodman and you kind of understood, people thought he was a bully and people thought he was a bad guy. The documentary really proved he wasn't. He was just very in tune with who he was, and he felt trapped, especially over at the Pistons. So when he started getting the new hairstyles, the rings, the earrings, the nose piercings, and all that stuff, it was just his way of not feeling like he was owned and tied, and he didn't feel like he had to follow any rules. It made him feel free, which I think was super important for him, because you could see, even with him being as good as he was on the Pistons, he really did get to step his game up on the Bulls and really just get to play his own game. He didn't feel like he was obligated to do anything else but just play defense, rebound. And let's not also forget, he wasn't a bad scorer. He was a pretty good scorer. He wasn't the best because he had to go alongside with Pippen and Jordan, who were going to be the dominant scorers no matter where he was and what day it was on the court. But you just got to understand who he was as a person. And I think the best thing for him was taking that load, the very, very first load management of NBA history, by going to Las Vegas for a few days and was told to be back in 48 hours and showed up 9 years later pretty much. But I think it was interesting too to watch him when Pippen was out to be that number 2 guy and understand like I need to go to work. So I think it earned me a little bit more respect and understood more of who Rodman was.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much. And Cameron, thank you so much for coming on. I apologize for a little bit of the audio issues we had earlier. We'll get those fixed for next time. But other than that, make sure to check out his channel. Hit that subscribe button to check out later videos. We have one coming out this Saturday. Follow both of us on social media if you want to keep in touch with what we're both doing. And until next time, we'll catch you. Cameron, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Have a good day, brother.
You too.
Good stuff, my guy. Yeah, I was like, Cameron, because I have the first part, because I just have Sue's ever stream down, because it's the first one it's like Cameron, and you just weren't talking, I'm like, oh gosh. So we gotta figure that out, but no worries, thank you so much for being on, brother. I appreciate you, my man. I'll hit you up for the next one, probably next week or sometime. Alright, man. Catch you later.